Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 15th of September of 2023. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And as you can see, we got another hero on the map, and we're talking about Surovikin, the Sergei Surovikin, the Russian general. He used to be the head of special military operation. In the autumn of the last year, he was the person who started bombing and attacking the Ukraine energy facilities. And if you remember, after the Wagner strike, this person disappeared, and some people were saying that he was in a prison and something like this. Later, we got some rumors and updates that probably this person will replace Prigozhin after his death, and the sources were saying that the Russians are going to redeploy Wagner groups in the south of Kherson, South Zaporozhye area. We have already moved these Wagner groups in this direction, and that Surovikin would be in charge of this army. And a lot of rumors, a lot of talks, and just today we start receiving some updates regarding this person, and these updates are coming from Algiers. This is Surovikin on the photos, and he is in Algiers. And of course, there are a lot of things to solve. And as I understand, the Minister of Defense of Russian Federation currently try to solve the issues and to continue the business that was a part of Wagner Group. And there are still a lot of commanders, a lot of people who currently in charge of Wagner's, and Surovikin is the only person who can be between Wagner and the Ministry of Defense. And this is very important to establish communications, to start trust each other, and to continue the business of Prigozhin and his the second man in the Wagner group. And currently Prigozhin is there, and as I understand, he is trying to solve two issues. The first one is to establish safe road through Algeria in direction of Niger. Currently it's very difficult to understand what is going to happen there. And the second question he's going to solve is to not to allow Algeria, or at least to solve the issues, and not to give France opportunity to use the same road if anything happens in Niger. So the big returns of the General Armageddon has been completed. Probably this is his first step, and the next time we're gonna see him somewhere in Zaporozhye or Kherson direction. Now we are moving further to the south of Ukraine. We're going to start with Kherson direction, of course. The Minister of Defense of Russian Federation reported that as a result of clashes in this area, the Ukrainians lost another 70 soldiers, 4 armored vehicles, and 2 artillery systems. As you can see, the level of losses is very heavy. And the thing is that if we compare Kherson with Kupiansk, for example, today, according to the Minister of Defense, the Ukrainians on the Kupiansk directions lost just 20 soldiers. And when talking about Kherson, the Ukrainians lost 75. So we see the area where, according to the Minister of Defense, the Russians have a counter-offensive operation in the vicinity of Sinkovka, in Kupiansk, Koslovka, Kotlarovka, Berestova. The level of loss is just 20 soldiers. And when talking about Kherson, about the area where there are just river, and there is no combat line, there is no active clashes, storming of the trenches and so on, just bombings and some artillery duels, the level of losses is higher in comparison with the Kupiansk. It's for me, it's fantastic and sometimes even amazing. And probably this is the reason, as we discussed in the previous video, of Ukrainian announced evacuation. A lot of settlements, the Ukrainians took a decision to evacuate, and this is a mass procedure. And one more time, if we increase the number of updates since the 1st of September, we see that the Russians are pretty focused against the Ukrainian positions, against the Ukrainian concentration of forces, and mainly in the area between Lvova, Burgovka, Mykolaievka, Adrada-Kamyanka, Kazatskaya, Veselaya. So this line, a lot of explosions that we have already discussed in the previous videos. Now we are moving further, and very interesting detail, very interesting video we got from the area from Kamyana-Dniprovskaya. This video was published by the Ukrainian sources, and first I was very surprised because first I watched the video and I didn't put the geolocation on map. And the thing is that if you take a look at this video, according to this video, the Ukrainians claim that they were attacking, bombing and shelling the Russian positions without geolocation. First take a look at this video without knowing the geolocation of this video, and you're gonna see that there is nothing like special, like the sand, ground. The Ukrainians were bombing some rivers on the bottom of the video, and first I thought that this video took place somewhere along Dnipro River to the south in Kazakhsky and in near Antonov Bridge and so on. And later I got the details regarding the geolocation, and currently we see that there is no like water at all. There's just lots of ground, the area that Ukrainians can use, as you can see, for crossing this area. Nobody knows how deep this territory and so on, and probably this is another reason why the Ukrainians have took a decision to evacuate people, because they understand that very soon, very soon, the battle for Kakhovka water reserve is going to start, and both sides, the Russians and the Ukrainians, will try to capture the territories that they can hold, to create another shelter, a stronghold, and to get as close as possible to each other. The Russians will try to get as close as possible to Nikopol, Pokrovsk. The Ukrainians, of course, obviously, they want to return back Energodar and Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. Now we are moving to Zaporozhye Orekhov area, to the Bradley Square. As we discussed, currently there is the same situation as yesterday. The day before yesterday, the Ukrainians continue attempts to accumulate their forces in Robotine of 47th Brigade and 65th Brigade. 46th Brigade continue their attempts to accumulate their forces in the fields between Novoprokopovka and Verbova, and the 71st Jaeger Brigade and the 82nd Brigade try to complete their concentration on the western part of Verbova. The Ukrainians reported that they published the video how they were attacking, bombing the Russian positions on the western part. So we're using this video just in learning purposes to understand the real combat line, and still we see that the Ukrainians haven't entered the western part, but the Russians reported that today, during the day, the Ukrainians have almost managed to enter the western part of the settlement with their stormtroopers, but the Russians managed to bring reinforcements, and as a result of counterattack, the Ukrainians were forced to step back. After that, the Russians were bombing and attacking the Ukrainian positions in trenches, the Ukrainians in trenches, their shelters and strongholds, trying not to allow them to regroup, to concentrate one another feast, and to attack one more time. So the fire is all over the fields. The Russians, they're not counting their rounds, their shells, because they understand that every second attack, every next attack can be final. And we saw the Russian experience in Robotine that no matter the situation, the Russians were forced to step back from some key positions in key situations. More details and more bombings we got from the south of Robotine. On this video we can see how the Russians managed to discover another Ukrainian Bradley, and as a result of Rivnopil hit, that armored vehicle was destroyed. As a result of clashes in this direction, Zaporozhye area, the Ukrainians lost 145 soldiers. As you can see, the level of losses is not so big, but from the other side is not so small, is in comparison with Kupiansk and, let's say, Liman direction. When talking about Rivnopil tactical bridgehead, today the Ukrainians made few attempts to attack the Russian positions. The first attempt took place in the vicinity of Vorozhaina, a very bloody attempt to attack. For these purposes, the Ukrainians were using at least 4 light vehicles, MRAP Pro. On this video you can see how the Ukrainians used at least 4 light vehicles. They tried to move their positions from one true line to another true line, to land their troopers, and probably to continue like clearing this area. So they were I believe they were very inspired with that attack. They feel that they're very good, they can do everything they want and so on. But at some point, at some seconds, something went wrong, and at least just from the beginning, as you can see, the Ukrainians haven't managed even to land. One MRAP was destroyed on mine, and after that the panic started. The Ukrainians started panic, then realized that everything goes wrong, and they start retreating and basically running away from these 3 lines, trying to save their lives, trying to save as much as possible soldiers and not to get under fire. As you can see, some soldiers started evacuation from just destroyed machine, and on their way back while retreating, another car, another like Max MRAP got on mine and also was destroyed. After that, the Ukrainians left the cars and started running across the fields and got under very heavy artillery fire. So that attack was repelled without even a real close combat. So now we understand the value and the importance of artillery systems, of minefields and so on. So that was an attack. The Ukrainians crossed these fields, entered this 4-3 line, got on minefields, lost at least 2 light vehicles and unknown number of forces, and basically retreat without nothing. Another attempt of attack the Ukrainians tried to implement in the vicinity of Novomayorska, and you know that there is a river Klishchiivka, and the Ukrainians managed to establish at least few like pontoon bridges that they currently try to use for redeploying of their forces from the northern part of that river to the southern part. And today they made another attempt to attack, and the Russians have redeployed their Sudoplatov FPV drone squad operators, and these operators started hunting, attacking the Ukrainians while they were moving across the fields. As we can see, a lot of armored vehicles, a lot of like infantry with support of this type of weapon were attacking the Russians, trying to cross this river Klishchiivka to get the northern part of Novomayorska. But all those attempts were repelled by the Russians' FPV drones. The Ukrainians had another area with significant losses. We haven't seen like losses among the infantry and manpower, just armored vehicles, but according to information we have, that Ukrainian attack was repelled. They were trying to attack, let's say, from the north, somewhere from Zolotaya Niva, some Klishchiivka. They were moving like they tried to stretch their forces in many directions, and they were tried to cross the Klishchiivka, but they were met by the Russians' FPV drones. On the Russians and of course on the Ukrainian side of the river were destroyed, defeated, and those who managed to survive were forced to step back to the north. Before that attack, the Ukrainians of course made some artillery preparation. They were bombing and attacking the Russian positions along the tree lines that located on the south of the river Klishchiivka. Probably they managed to destroy some positions, some to damage some shelters, probably to force some Russians to step back, but the further attack was repelled, and the Ukrainians with significant losses were forced to step back. As a result of clashes, at least in this direction, the Ukrainians lost 175 soldiers. As you can see, the level of losses was pretty heavy in comparison with the previous days, so we see that there is still active phase of offensive operation to the south in direction of Staromlynovka, Kremenchuk, Novomayorska, Novodonetskaya. Now we are moving further to the south, the direction, South Donetsk direction. We're going to talk about Novomikhailivka. If you might ask my opinion, this is the most important probably and the most concentrated area of Russian fire. There was a small operational pulse in this area that took place for around 4 or 5 days, and we haven't received nothing from this direction. And just for today we got at least 4 detailed videos of Russian attacks against the Ukrainian positions. During the previous 24 hours the Russians published 4 videos where they managed to destroy few shelters, few ammo depots. There was a single attack with Lemur missile, the missile that the Russian helicopters can use and can attack the Ukrainian position within 15-kilometer distance from hidden positions, basically being like invisible for the Ukrainian air defense. There was like attacks with just a regular artillery strike with Rivnopil and so on. A lot of things were destroyed, and one more time, if you ask my opinion, I believe that the Russians soon are going to start assault this settlement, because if we one more time increase for the 100th time in a row, increase the number of updates in this area since the 1st of September, since the 1st of August, we see the concentration of Russian fire. It's like every single square meter was under attack. And we are talking just about geolocated videos that were published. Obviously, I believe that this is not more than 50% of real episodes from this area. I believe that even not more than 30%. So, and almost every single street, every single building during the previous 2 months was under very Russian fire. And this is like very heavy artillery preparation before very powerful offensive operation in direction of Konstantinovka and Novomikhailivka, with the purpose to penetrate the Ukrainians' defense belt and to encircle the Ukrainian forces in Vuhledar, and of course to get the strict attack line in direction of Kurakhova. And this is exactly what the Russians are trying to implement. And one more time, the Ukrainian problem is that there is complete absence of any counter artillery or counter drone duels. Just few videos from the line Stepova and Alenivka, but it's nothing in comparison with Russian activity in this direction. Now we're moving further, and we're going to talk about Donetsk direction. Today the Ukrainians published a lot of videos of their FPV drone strikes against the Russian infantry, a concentration of Russian forces, Russian tanks, Russian armored vehicles, operational warehouses, like concentration service centers and so on. Just probably like a series of videos that took place during September. Nothing special, but like attempts to attack, to counterattack, and to control the situation in the vicinity of Avdiivka. And I'll remind you that currently the Ukrainians, there is still absence of normal information regarding the situation in Opitna. The Ukrainians launched offensive operation there and probably managed to establish some positions on the northeastern part, and maybe all those attacks with FPV drones were connected with the clashes in Opitna, and the Ukrainians were trying to establish control over supply and support roads that the Russians could use for counter-attack and to make attempt to return control over entire settlement. Now we are moving further to Klishchiivka direction. Today we got also a lot of interesting updates. The Ukrainians one more time reported that they managed to establish 100% control over the settlement. We got a lot of videos from 3rd Storm Assault Brigade. Also they published the video how the drone were flying above the territory, and there was a record asking people to surrender, and they're giving them like ultimatum to do this by this or that time. But if you ask my opinion, we still haven't seen even a single video of Ukrainians inside the settlement. We know that Ukrainians have a certain pattern. If they capture the settlement, in a second they're going to establish their Ukrainian flag, no matter where, but they're establishing the flag. But yet we haven't received even a single Ukrainian flag above Avdiivka, which confirms that the Russians, that this settlement or is in the gray zone or is under complete Russian control. And one more time, I'll remind you that every time the Ukrainians attack, the Russians take positions and redeployed under the railways facilities. They can feel themselves pretty safe, and they're still there, so they're staying there while the Ukrainians bombing, and after that they're walking out and start fighting with the Ukrainians inside the settlement. If the Ukrainians of course publish more details and videos regarding the settlement, we will color this territory in yellow color, but yet we haven't received nothing like that. And furthermore, the Ukrainians of course have reported that they captured the settlement, but the Russians still say that they control the settlement or the settlement is in the gray zone. Also, the Ukrainians published the video how they discovered another Russian Grad system, and as a result of HIMARS strike, that Grad system was destroyed. Very interesting thing regarding the HIMARS weapon. For example, today the Russian sources reported that the Ukrainians, not the Ukrainians, but that the United States of America has created the warehouse, not the warehouse, but the plant in the settlement by the name of Mielets, so somewhere in this area, very close to the Ukrainian border, just 120 kilometers in the settlement by the name of Mielets. The Poland authorities built a factory for HIMARS missiles. So 100 to 120 kilometers, not very far from the Ukrainian border. I'm not sure whether this factory works or not, but anyway, in a year, this is going to be a very big problem for the Russians, because the Ukrainians, probably the Polish authorities, will be able to produce significant number of this type of weapon, and they will, of course, all these missiles will go on the territory of Ukraine that later further will be used on the combat line. So it's a problem. It's a problem, very big problem, and I believe that this is not the final production center that Ukrainians, Polish authorities in the United States of America are going to establish within the next year. Now we are moving further to the northern direction, to the Kupiansk-Liman area. We haven't received almost nothing from this direction, just regular activity, regular clashes without any nothing special. So the total losses of the Ukrainians on the Kupiansk-Liman front line were just 75 soldiers, and we got just one video how the Ukrainians discovered abandoned Russian armored vehicles somewhere among the fields in the vicinity of Raigorodka, and as a result of cluster rounds hit, that armored vehicle was destroyed. Just the video to confirm, let's say, the Russian positions and some activity from the Ukrainian side. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds you to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes to my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.